talk about resilience after things work out. Today's guest lived it in real time. Oscar Orta was just 1 year into building his first company when the business came within 15 days of going bankrupt. Through long nights, hard decisions, renegotiations, and a complete shift in leadership, he turned the company around and made it profitable within months. That experience completely shaped how he thinks about entrepreneurship, partnerships, and growth today. Now, through Growth Right Partners, he helps business to business service companies install the systems and business development foundations many founders wait too long to build. If you're ever felt like you were carrying the entire business on your back, this episode is going to hit home. Oscar, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for that great introduction, Gabrielle. And Gabby, I'm sorry, Gabby. And
Yeah.
thank you so much for having me on the show.
Yeah. Thanks so much. Yeah, it was a little wordy in our introduction, but I think I got through it.
Yeah, no, you did. You did perfectly. Thank you so much.
Oscar, we just got off of your podcast and we had such a great time. I was like, you have to come on mine. So, I want to hear about your whole origin story and what originally pulled you towards entrepreneurship. What was happening in your life when you decided to start your first company?
Thank you. Thank you for that, of course. And I think, that maybe we should turn this into a series because I
Yeah.
know after this one, I'm going to want to talk to you again. So excited to be here and thank you for having me. Um, So entrepreneurship has been a part of my life since I was little, and I'm not going to go into many details because otherwise I would be here for like 5 hours.
Yeah.
But one of my grandparents, my mom's dad, was an entrepreneur. He left school when he was sixth grade, sorry, in the sixth grade,
Wow.
because his dad died, and so he was the oldest brother. He had to take care of the family,
Yeah.
and he just started. He started working, and he didn't have any studies, and he actually came to have one of the biggest mechanical just workshops, in all of his city, just through sheer, hard work, determination, and just yeah, just wanted to keep his family afloat, and then of course having a better family, a better life for his family. That inspired me a lot, when I was little. And one of the first thing that I did was as a second or third grader, I don't remember the exact time, I would go and collect aluminum cans and then go sell them. So it was the first time that I started, making money for myself.
Yeah.
And later on, I started working when I was 11. And one of the things that I did 2, 3 years afterwards was I was working at a restaurant and I noticed that there was somebody going every single week to go get the bubblegum machine and take, money out of that. And
Yeah.
that definitely surprised me a lot. And so I started buying, this bubblegum vending machines and started putting them in little barber shops. And,
Wow.
and so it was like my first, entrepreneurial venture. Going a little bit more into the actual first business that I had,
Yeah.
as I was graduating college, I had the opportunity with a couple of friends to start a wholesale music instrument business. And so we had our own private labels. And so we would import them and then we would sell just to other businesses, right? It was wholesale. So we would sell to academies, schools, and then just distributors and music stores.
Okay.
And like you said in the introduction, within a year of getting our first container load, which was October 31st, 2013. I remember because it was Halloween. I remember the exact date. We got our first container load October 31st, got the second one on December 2nd. So right, for Christmas and Black Friday and everything. We were very excited because we were going to a lot of stores and people were fairly open to having this new label, these new brands come into the store and just have them and try and sell them.
Mhm.
And we're the new kid in town. And so we got a lot of orders, thankfully. Unfortunately, we were giving, 30 days credit, 45 days credit, and to the biggest customer, 60 days credit.
Uh-huh.
And of course, the problem was that even though we did have investors for this, and that's why we were able to buy 2 container loads,
Yeah.
as the first like part of the stock of the inventory, we weren't really planning on having to collect 15, 30, 45, 60 days after the credit actually ended.
Right.
And so that was the first part where we got into a little bit of trouble because with this kind of business, we were paying up front. Then we would be waiting, 30, 60 days for manufacturing, then paying the rest, then another 30, 45 days, transit time,
Yeah.
importing them, selling them, giving another 60 days. So all in all, it took us about 6 months to get all of the money back.
Wow.
And that's why within a year exactly of us getting the first container load, we were 15 days away from insolvency. We had one order coming in, like being manufactured. So we owed the manufacturer. We also, had, of course, salaries to pay.
Yeah.
And we were not, I mean, we were paying ourselves, but we weren't paying ourselves for the past 2 months.
Yeah.
And we was just about to go, bankrupt. And so one of the things that happened there was I made the executive decision at 26 years old to kind of take the leadership out of my operating partner, which was 52. He could have been my dad. He was actually friends with one of my uncles back in
Wow.
school. And so, you know what? You are a master at sales. This is why, we've actually done so well on paper, but I need to collect.
Yeah.
You're the one that's selling, you're the one that's collecting. You're not looking at the numbers other than the sales numbers. I'm looking at every single thing. I need to start collecting, and that'll do two things. One is going to take that away from you. So that way you can actually be the good guy, with the
Yeah.
clients, and you can just blame it on me. I don't care. Blame everything on me. Like, oh, we can't. No, I can't give you more guitars because Oscar. Yeah, yeah, I'm the buy guy. I don't care. we need to do something, right? And B, since I'm the one that's looking at it, I know exactly which customer, pays faster. We can give discounts to them, whatever it is. So
Yeah.
I'll do that. And so we talked to the investors. He reluctantly said yes, he didn't want to give that away. The investors sided with me, so I started doing that. And of course, at the same time, I went to two, three, four different banks. And I also went to friends and family. And it took me two loans to be able to kind of get us back into traction. So, of
Mhm.
course, we got a loan right away. For about $25,000 to just be able to pay payroll, end up paying the manufacturer and then just operating costs.
Yeah.
And then 45 days later, I asked for another loan to the bank. And so those two loans were about $45,000, got us back on track. And since I started collecting, and that was my whole thing,
Yeah.
12 hours straight, because I was, calling different time zones. I'm like, hey, you know what, Oscar, this one, this and that. So
Yeah.
thankfully, we got, I mean, that got us back on track. He was able to keep, selling to the clients that I said, hey, this is okay to sell.
Yeah.
And yeah, within about, what was it, 5 to 6 months, we were finally back in the black, instead of just being, in the red, and then just trying to tell to everyone in the staff everything is fine. But of course, they knew not everything was fine. So that's kind of, like the origin story that you mentioned. And of course, it
Oh,
was a very stressful time. So as you can imagine.
yeah. Well, I mean, I think that you really hit on a few different things that a lot of small business owners and people who are just getting started aren't really thinking about, right? So they're thinking about the timeline is, oh, I just sell this particular widget. I'm going to get paid for this widget fairly soon, and then, I'm not going to be out of pocket for very long. And that's that revenue cycle, right? And I talk a lot about this about, you need somebody who's going to own that cash conversion. So you have the sales team, but then you need to have that someone on the heavy that's going to do the follow up and make sure that those invoices get paid. So it's like it's an amateur thing. It's something that a lot of people go through right when they're getting started in their business. And I mean, I think even I've seen business owners that have been in business for quite some time still not follow proper policy and procedure around collection. So, I mean, bravo for pulling through that.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
When did you actually think we might survive this? We may be okay.
So it's I think it was 2 points. The first one was when I was given, like the green light to take that from the operating partner, which again, I mean, he didn't like, but eventually, that saved us.
Yeah.
So after a while, he was able to accept things and say, hey, you know what, like, thank you for that, for doing that. And I understand that, right? Because I was his son's age. So
Yeah.
I think that for somebody that had had a similar business before,
Hmm.
and for someone that, it's 52, and having someone that's his son's age give orders to him,
Yeah.
or block some of his decisions,
Yeah.
that was very hard. But the first point was that, and then the second point was so I was just working at the office. I was managing everything, and I was kind of like we were like co-CEOs, right? But of course, at the eyes of everyone, he was the authority because he was older, he had a business before, he had connections. And that's also why, we did so good in sales in the beginning, because he already had some connections in that industry.
Hmm.
But the second one was when I decided to not only call the clients, but also I started taking trips to different cities to visit, the biggest clients, and visit also the ones that owed us the most, and
Yeah.
then just say, hey, you know what, I'm Oscar, I'm Mike's business partner, and so I'm just here to kind of get to know you and present myself. I know that you don't know me, maybe you know me just from the emails, right, or from the calls,
Yeah.
but I just wanted to take the time to actually come here, and get to meet you guys. And so that made a big difference as well. And I remember specifically one client, Bernard. He was from Vancouver, and so Bernard Walter. I remember specifically that he was one of the few clients that never owed us money. But he was very good. Like if his bill was due on the 14th, he would pay on the 13th. It was
Oh,
always one day before. And all of a sudden, and he was one of the biggest ones. And all of a sudden, he didn't pay on the 13th. 14th passed. He didn't pay on the 20th. He didn't pay on the 26th. And I called them and he wasn't replying. So I actually took a flight to go and see him. And when we first met in person, he's like, so who are you? I'm like, Oscar, oh, Oscar, how are you? And I'm like, what's going on? Like, I just came here because I didn't hear from you and I got worried because you always pay on time. And oh my God, I owe you guys money. Give me 1 second. And he wrote a check right there and he just gave it to me. And that check was honestly after the second, even after the second loan,
yeah.
that check was honestly what took us, over the edge to just be like, okay, you know what, this is great. And then I, of course, got an order from him right there. And so
Uh-huh.
that's when I said, you know what, I think we'll be fine,
Yeah.
if we just keep doing this.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it sounds like you just added that personal touch and then you really took the initiative to insert yourself as a leader in your
Yeah.
company. As an interesting dynamic because yeah, you're dealing with somebody who's older than you, wiser, but you also are part of that solution. And so I love that you took the initiative and just started reaching out and flying and getting face to face with people because I think
Yeah.
that makes a huge difference. So
100%.
looking back now, how much of that turnaround was strategy versus mindset versus leadership under pressure? What do you think made you just, okay, I gotta get on a plane and go and see these people? What made you
Uh,
do
Honestly, I think it was just fight or flight response. It was like, I mean, I've
that?
already talked to them. Some of them answered the phone, some of them don't. And there was actually one client that he didn't pick up the phone, he didn't answer emails, and I went, and the store was closed, and we never heard about it. And ironically and funnily enough, he ended up marrying another one of our biggest clients like a year after, and she invited us to the wedding, and so we didn't go.
Yeah,
But I'm like, okay, you know what, Stephanie, thank you so much. Can you please tell your fiance that he owes me a call?
yeah.
So yeah, but yeah, it was just fight or flight. I think that at that point, ignorance was bliss. I think that I was uh quick, just a quick parenthesis here. I had to put college on hold for a few years. So I was just graduating at 26. And
Mm,
even though I started working at around 11 or 12, this was like the first big business, the big first formal business. So it was still pretty green at that point. And so
hmm.
I think that just saying, you know what, I can do anything and everything. I remember honestly feeling like I can conquer the world
Yeah.
and this is happening, so I need to go in and do this myself. So I think it was just like, if I go and show up, some things are going to change. And I
Hmm.
think that was it, honestly. I think if I had, any and any consulting experience, any other, like real job experience in business at a high level, I don't know if I would have done it.
Yeah.
Um, but I can just say, I just remember that, like,
Yeah.
I don't know what's going on, but I need to go and show up there, even if they close the door in my face.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I love that. I think that is, you're right. Most people would not do that. But I feel like, man, that just shows your perseverance and tenacity. And those are the skills that are needed to be an entrepreneur. So
Thank you. Yeah.
bravo, well done. You eventually exited from that company and decided you wanted to start another company, which is the one you're in now, right? Growth Right Partners. Yeah. What made you stick with entrepreneurship?
Within 5 years of starting that, and about 4 years from being almost bankrupt, that's when we got an offer to buy the business, and everyone stayed except for me. Because we were basically told, hey, we're going to buy the business. It was the what's it called, the owner financing,
Mm,
right? And so it was a pretty good offer. But at the time, this is my baby. I'm not gonna take orders from someone else and work for them, right? On if this is what I built. So I
yeah.
decided to take a lower offer, but it was just a bulk sum payment,
Yeah.
and that's why I exited. And as we had investors, and we were still paying some of the loans
Yeah.
back, it wasn't a life-changing money, but
Yeah.
it was, year and a half before the pandemic. So it was a pandemic I can survive money.
Yeah.
So, so what happened was I got out of that and immediately wanted to put my money somewhere else. And I was talking to a few people about investing into a couple of businesses that were just starting. And for whatever reason, it didn't work. And I stopped, working. I stopped receiving money for 6 months after selling because I
Mm-hmm.
was trying to get some of these off the ground.
Hmm.
And eventually, after 6 months, I'm like, I'm not gonna spend this money. I need to go and start doing something. So I started consulting for a 3PL company,
Hmm.
and so started doing that April 2019, and it was going great. And then as the pandemic hit, literally like 1 month before that,
Yeah.
I was offered like a full-time position, and they say, "Hey, do you want to come in?" And I'm like, "I'm thinking about it." The pandemic hit, and then I'm like, "Hey, hey, you know what? I thought about it, and I think yeah." And they
Yeah.
actually said yes. So thankfully, that got me through the pandemic. That, and of course the money that I had from the selling, and
Hmm.
I was there for a year and a half, and I'm like, yep, I like consulting. I like the industry, trade,
Yeah.
logistics. That was what I was doing at the end of
Hmm.
the day, with my own business.
Hmm.
But I can't work for someone else, especially not after having had my own business. I need to call the shots. I
Yeah.
need to be the one that reaps the rewards of my effort. And I mean, I love them to death, no, nothing negative to say about them. But
Right.
there were some things where I was asked what to do, and I said, this is exactly what we need to do in order to get through A, B, and C. There was a few different situations and a few different contracts. And they said no. They still did what I wanted to do. And at that point, I'm like, you know what? If I'm not being heard and
Yeah.
I'm being asked to do a lot of this work and it's just not showing, then I'm just, thank you so much. I'm out of here, and I'm just gonna go and do my own thing because
Yeah.
I know that I have what it takes to help other businesses, grow. And I also know that if I am the one making the mistake, I can accept that. But
Yeah.
if someone else is making the mistake when I specifically said, "Hey, this is why we should do this,"
Yeah. Yeah.
then I can't because then
Right.
the thing. Like the last straw was that I got blamed for something that honestly wasn't my fault. So I'm like, you know what? No, I'm out of here. Thank you so much.
Yeah. When you decided to go back out on your own, what was the specific problem that you wanted to solve? Or were you kind of fumbling around trying to figure out what that problem was going to be?
The first thing that I wanted to solve was just a growth problem. That's why it's called growth right.
Yeah.
So and the first and it's called growth right, WRITE, because
Yeah.
I'm playing on the words of, hey, there's a right way of growing, but also because I believe that everything is based off of the written word. But when I first started, I was helping CEOs, founders, entrepreneurs to grow on Twitter. That was before Elon, bought it.
Yeah.
But it was a funny thing because while I was at the other company, I just started writing on Twitter, just for fun, and I actually started growing a lot. I got 30,000 followers there,
Wow.
and I started. A lot of people started asking me to help them or write for them or something. And honestly, that was something that I enjoyed. So I was kind of following my passion there.
Hmm.
And I was helping them, get more conversations, get more inbound leads and everything. But eventually it got to a point where I said, okay, I know how to do this, but I want to scale this. And I don't think that doing this on, being a ghostwriter agency on Twitter is going to
Yeah.
get me to where I want to go. And also, I am helping individuals, but I want to help, companies as a whole, even though it's a one-on-one conversation, with the
Yeah.
CEO, the CFO, the CMO. And so that's when I pivoted into, okay, let's help companies grow.
Yeah.
I know how to do that. But like I got from 0 to 2.7 million in 5 years. I exited. And that came from a conversation that I had with a very old friend. He's like, yo, no, there's not a lot of people that can say that have done what you did. It's not $1 billion valuation, it's not 100 million, but still, you
Yeah.
can help small businesses do that.
Absolutely. Hmm.
And
Hmm.
so that's what got me, okay, let's pivot into growth right. And it's growth right partners because the way I like doing things is partnering with the company. And I don't come in as a consultant, or I don't come in as a vendor. I come in as someone that's partnering, and everything, like I do the strategy, we talk about it, and I execute that as well. So I whatever it is that I'm coming in, let's say that I come in with a new channel, I'm owning the whole picture from beginning to end. And that's the only way that I believe is the only way that somebody can actually, give results, where it's, I'm going to own this one, two, three, whatever many channels, and I'm going to execute from beginning to end. I'll
Right.
still consult, on the other things you guys are doing. I'll still help you guys with anything else. But this one, two, three that I'm doing, I'm going to do them, right?
Yeah.
It's going to be me and my team.
Yeah.
So that's what I decided to do. And that was because I had done it. I saw that other people, had a problem with that. And specifically, there's a lot of shiny objects going around, with inbound, outbound. This is the
Yeah.
solution, whatever. And we talked about this, right? There's no one solution to everyone's problems.
Right.
But for me, we did everything, the 2.7, we did everything through cold outbound, cold outreach. Yeah, my partner had business connections, but
Yeah.
we were still going on, literally knocking on doors, calling people cold, emailing them, and then just showing up,
Yeah.
month after month after month.
Yeah.
So, and that's one channel that I think most people don't have or don't know how to make work. So that was the idea behind everything.
Yeah. Yeah. When you're thinking about the systems for growth, personally, I'm a very like workflow oriented person. So when you're really thinking about creating a system for growth, can you give us like an example of maybe something you've done in the past that is just a system for growth?
Yeah, sure.
Specifically, yeah, like that. It sounds very like woo woo, right? And like, oh, there's a system like manifesting. I'm manifesting, and maybe there's lots of people believe in manifesting. There's action behind that somewhere. So tell me about what that looks like. A system for growth.
Of course. So one of the things, just to give a little bit of context, before the pandemic, before Zoom, before everything, and before starting that music business,
Hmm.
I was, and I'm still in the board of directors of a nonprofit that has to do with electronics recycling and just narrowing the digital gap in third world countries. And the reason why I mentioned this is because I was on the speaker circuit. So I was getting invited
Hmm.
as a keynote speaker to different electronic recycling companies, conferences. And I had to create a system for me to go to the conference, speak there, and still have the business running. And so I started creating them out of, just out of necessity because I really like public speaking.
Yeah.
So I started doing that. And so I realized when I exited the company that those systems that I created for myself, just for fun, and basically just doing a Frankenstein out of the tools that were available back then,
Yeah.
with no coding, by the way, because I'm not a programmer,
Yeah.
helped a lot with the valuation,
Hmm.
because we already had stuff that was there that was not automated, but made things
Easier.
easier, faster, more efficient, and
Hmm.
also without SAP, or any other big softwares. So
Hmm.
that's how it started. And so when I did that, then the pandemic came, remote work and everything, and a
Yeah.
lot of people were uh, adapting to that lifestyle. And
Yes.
honestly, I miss that. I miss that signal, and so that I kick myself in the head, for that. But now to your question, I whenever people ask me, what do you do? Is I install client acquisition engines and streamline firms with AI workflows. And the reason why I do both sides is because you can either make more money, or you can streamline your operations to be more efficient and have more profit.
Right.
So you can do both. So what I do is I come into a company, and then we have, during the onboarding call or discovery calls, I like assessing what the biggest problems are for people. And most people think that they have a lead generation problem, but a
Yeah.
lot of the times they have a sales problem, or they have a conversion problem, or they have a follow-up problem. So
Uh-huh.
depending on the problem that they have is the thing that I create. So one of the growth systems that I create is I do a workflow. And I wanted to present this last week at the conference that I was a client strategy and proposal workflow. So what does that mean?
Mm.
I take, I'm assuming I'm starting, the demo was, let's assume that you already have a prospect that you've been talking to. So
Hmm.
you've already, emailed back and forth, you've already done some research on them, and you've had one call with them, right? And so you kind of already know where they are, who their ideal client profile is, what their issue is, and what they're looking for. So the problem after that call is that now you have to put everything into a proposal or
Yeah.
a strategy brief or something like that. So what I created was, we take everything that we've done. So we take the sales call or the discovery call that you have with the client. We take the email chain that you have. We take the research that you already did, which can also be done, with AI. We take the research, and we take what I like calling your business blueprint. That's very important. Every business needs to have a business blueprint if they want AI to work efficiently and to actually give them real results. So we
Yeah.
take all of those ones and we put them into the workflow, into the system. And now, we get, as the output, we get a client strategy brief, we get a proposal outline, we can also get a proposal deck, and then we get also the initial email to, the one that says, "Hey, Gabriel, it was great talking to you yesterday. Just like we said, we have another call scheduled for next week. Here is, a strategy brief that I created for you, and I will present the strategy deck, the proposal deck next week."
Yeah.
And then it also has the follow up a week after, follow up week after, and follow up a week after. Because those are kind of the things where, especially founder led businesses, the founder, the CEO, the top executives have a
Yeah.
lot of things to do. And if they're also doing sales, then there's a lot of holes in that bucket, that just,
Can't
the
leak.
water is coming off. Exactly. It's
Yeah.
leaking. So in
Yeah.
order to not it to leak, we need to create a system for that. So
Mhm.
that's one that I created, and I wanted to present it last week, but I gave the audience the option to choose. They ended up choosing a file organizer workflow that I have, which takes, thousands of files that are
Yeah.
there in your downloads folder, and that puts them into 10, 15 folders and subfolders. People love that one. I said, hey, I have this Excel error hunter. I have the, client strategy and proposal one, or the file organizer. Which one do you want? Five said Excel, five said, the client proposal. 95 people said we want the file organizer. So I presented that one. But it
Yeah.
all depends on where the client is, what the biggest problem they have is as well, but
Yeah.
also what I come in and diagnose, because You might say, I have this problem. I come in, I'm like, no, not really. It's not a lead problem. It's a follow-up or a sales problem, a
Yeah,
conversion problem.
yeah, yeah. It's so funny because you're you're hitting on exactly. I have a talk that I'm doing this next week, and we're talking about really diagnosing financial problems or issues in your financial statements, but it all ties back to other things. And generally, the numbers are not the problem. You know what I mean? So
Exactly.
it's so funny because we logically we make stories up about what our problems are, but when you actually have somebody come in from the outside and look in, it's interesting because it's just a completely different perspective. And I think that's what our job is to bring perspective and knowledge and experience to the situation and help create a solution for that. So I love that.
100%.
What is a painful lesson you're grateful you learned early instead of later?
That is a great question.
Yeah.
What is a painful lesson
Lesson.
that I learned early?
Uh-huh. You're grateful for that you learned early instead of later.
So it's gonna be two answers, but they are very much related. I think that a painful lesson is that we, as humans, we can change at any given time, and it is up to us. It is our responsibility.
Yeah.
This is something that I learned honestly on the personal side first, and then I saw how it connected to the business side of things. But it's that you don't need to stay where you are, and you don't need to stay as you are,
Yeah.
and you are the only one responsible. A lot of people like saying, "Hey, nobody's gonna come here and save you," and it's true. But the way I'm looking at it, and the way I think about it is, I allow some. If something happens to me once, okay, I might have not known about it.
Yeah.
If the same thing happens to me twice, right, it's on me.
Yeah.
And so I'm the one that's responsible for either, and that's why I wanted to, go back to owning my own business instead of just
Yeah.
staying, after exiting, is because I like owning my mistakes and I like owning also my wins.
Yeah.
So I am the one responsible for that. If I want something to change, it's on me. And honestly, I first learned it, in relationships. Um, the first couple of relationships that I had, they weren't that great. And
Mhm.
after a lot of suffering and a lot of just me being down in the dumps. You're a teenager, you don't know what's going on. The first few times that you're dating and everything and heartbreak, I realized, hey, I'm the one that's doing X, Y, and Z, and this is why I'm here. And I'm
Yeah.
repeating that, right? So that's a pattern. So the good thing and the bad thing is that it's up to me, and I'm the one that holds that responsibility. So I need to be accountable to myself.
Yeah.
And so I think that's a big thing. And it's the same with business, right?
Right.
If the business is growing, it's because I am surrounding myself with the right people. I'm delegating the right things, and I'm doing the right things myself, right?
Right.
Because it's a team effort at the end of the day.
Yeah.
If the business is failing, it's because of me, right? I'm
Right.
the one responsible. I might have hired the wrong person. I might have not delegated, the right things to do. I might have not explained things, the right way. So it's not that it's me. And I think that's a very big thing, both again on the personal side and the business side, that everyone should know. And that it was very painful. It's still painful when I forget about it.
Yeah.
But I'm glad that I learned it, 20 years ago as opposed to right now.
Yeah. I think you're right. I think a lot of entrepreneurs and founders feel the same way. They're like, if I make a mistake, then great. I'll figure it out. I'll fix it, whatever. But I want to be responsible for my success or failure, either way. And they're willing to take that risk every single day. And so I think that's really what sets us apart from, you know, an, another personality type, let's just say. Um, no right or
100%. I
wrong,
agree.
no right or wrong. It's just that is how we operate. So,
Exactly.
um, okay, last question. What would you tell a founder who feels like their business is one bad month away from collapsing?
I would say look at your numbers, look at, the expenses and look at your collections. Honestly, that was a big thing for me. Maybe, if you and I had met back
Mhm.
then and I asked you to look at, my business and my numbers,
Yeah.
the first thing, of course, that comes to mind is I have a cash flow problem. And this goes
Yeah.
back to what I was saying, right? And you
Yeah.
come in and you say, no, you don't have a cash flow problem, Oscar. You have a collections problem, right?
Yeah.
And you have a credit, problem. You're not putting the clients through a filter to know if they deserve credit or not, right?
Right.
If they are paying on time or not. So
Mhm.
I think that that's the first thing is if you think that you're 1 month away from that, look at the numbers. Maybe you're paying yourself too much.
Mhm.
Maybe you're not paying the people enough. And even though if you pay more people, right? If you pay the right people, even if you are in trouble, what they're worth, you might get better results from that. So
Yeah.
it's not only about, hey, let's spend less money. It's about, spending the right amount of money and looking at if it's whether, if there's any costs that you can cut, or, if there's any collections that you need to pay, or also, the other part is look at the follow-ups. You might have one of the biggest clients and you haven't called them in the last 60 days, 45 days, 30 days, or whatever it
Yeah.
is. There's always a way to kind of go and see, hey, I might not need to ask for a loan, or I might, but even if you do, you still need to look at the whole part of the business from beginning to end and then see where numbers are not adding up and where you could either be collecting or selling more and more efficiently.
Right, right, exactly. So I love that. I think it's a a real wholesome viewpoint when you're looking at your numbers. You have to be looking at, of course, your income. Are you collecting at the end of the day? Also your expenses and what you're expending and the value. And you're right, it may not even be about cutting costs. It might be more about getting more value from what you're currently spending. And that might be just getting clarity around roles and responsibilities, which
Yeah.
is whew, a whole nother thing in leadership, right?
Exactly. And I mean the solution looks different to everyone, right? You can maybe renegotiate, a loan that you have. Maybe you can renegotiate as well, with customers. One of the things
Yeah.
that I didn't mention is one of the things that I did was for every single customer, that we had at that moment that owed money, I'm like, if you pay within a week, I will give you a 5% discount.
Yep.
Like
Yep.
I know that you're late, you might be 90 days late. I don't care. Pay me and I'll give you a 5% discount,
Yeah.
right, on
Yeah.
this order and the next one. And that helped a lot as well.
Yeah. Yeah. We've done that too, where we've had a few clients who were just like dragging their feet. And this was back in I would say the earlier days, but we're like, okay, we're coming up on year end. We would love to clear our accounts receivable. I'll give you a 10% discount. Can we just get it paid? And we generally could get it paid within, a few days. So it was kind of a nice way to like clear your accounts receivable also, even if you're not hurting for cash, but you just really don't want to be managing it anymore. So, you can always go about it in that direction. But I love that you were talking about it from a vendor perspective as well. Um, yeah, like talking to your vendors, super important. Can we
Yeah.
delay things? Or if I speed up paying you, will you give me a bit of a discount? That there's always opportunities for negotiation there too. So
Yeah. I think that one of the biggest things is, and this could have been added to the answer earlier, is that if you never ask, the answer will always be no.
exactly. Oh my gosh. And so let's leave it there. Make
Okay.
sure you ask those questions. Yes.
Yes.
Oscar, thank you again so much for coming on and sharing your wisdom, your founder journey with us. I just really appreciate all of that. Um, if somebody wants to get a hold of you, how can they reach you?
Thank you. Thank you. First of all, thank you for having me, and I love these conversations. So they can find me at growthright.com. So that's growthwrite.com. They can email me oscar@growthright.com, or they can also, just look me up on LinkedIn, Oscar A Orta ORTA. And yeah, I'll be more than glad to, just have conversations, show the workflows. If anybody wants to see them, I actually recorded them so I can send them the
Yeah.
links as well.
Yeah, I love that. Excellent. All right. So our viewers, make sure you like and subscribe. And if you're interested, reach out to Oscar because he's got um, some downloadables and some things that you could use and sounds very, very valuable. So thanks again. We'll see you next time.